I think socialism means not having toilet paper. And so people are using the cash as toilet paper because really the toilet paper holds more value. Think about that.
Hello again, everyone. I'm James, and this is Fundie Fridays. If you're new to the channel, my partner Jen and I talk about Christian fundamentalism and conservative politics here. Jen normally does her makeup while she makes these videos because she is a multi-talented goddess. I normally dodge questions about my makeup prowess when I make these videos because I am a con man and a hack. Last week, Jen brought you a detailed deep dive into the Mormon matrimonial meltdown that is Cody Brown and his various wives/children/nannies. And the last time you saw me, we were all taking a ride together on the speeding bullet that is the life of Congresswoman Lauren Boebert of Colorado's 3rd District. I also learned last week that the word machismo doesn't mean exactly what I thought it did. I'll be honest, I just thought it was the noun form of the word macho. It turns out it has a lot of significance in the Latin community that I wasn't aware of. It's been irking me since a couple of commenters pointed it out last week, so I just wanted to mention it here, and I also left a really cool article from the National Institute of Health about it if you want to learn more. It's in the description with my other sources. But now that I've had a couple of weeks to rest, and my bullet wounds have healed, and my trichinosis is mostly cleared up, I think it's time for a change of scenery. Colorado is cold, and at least according to Lauren Boebert, also a lawless wasteland complete with shootouts at high noon and easily transmissible breathing diseases. Yeah, I'm thinking somewhere warmer this time. I want to get my Jimmy Buffett on, you know? Just somewhere with an ocean, somewhere where I can kick back in a beach chair and relax with the rays and the waves and the good vibes, you know? Well, I mean, I guess technically we can get the rays and the waves here, but it's really not giving Jimmy Buffett or good vibes. Seriously though, folks, today we're going to continue our deep dive into the GOP's modern problem children, and that is going to require us to take a trip down south to the state of Florida. And for the record, we're going to be covering everybody on at least this graphic because I already added the check marks, and that took me like 2 hours to figure out how to do. It turns out Photoshop has changed quite a bit since I last took Intro to Digital Media in 2006. It also means that if you have a politician to request that I talk about, it's going to be at least till July because I'm only doing 1 episode a month. I'd love to do more, and I love you all, but I'm very lazy.
Oh, I wish I could, but I don't want to.
But you know who isn't lazy when it comes to delivering high-quality products to their adoring consumers? Our sponsors today over at Casetify. For real, you all have no idea how excited I am to bring you today's sponsor, Casetify. Right now, you can go to casetify.com/FundieFridays to save 15% off your next order of a quality phone case. Now, I've been forced to drool over the cool cases that they sent Jen the last time you saw us, but now I've been lucky enough to get a set of cases from Casetify on my own. They were generous enough to help me out there. I'll say this, I just got my Galaxy S22 Ultra. I can tell you right now, that is definitely the fanciest phone I've ever had in my life, so I'm really looking to protect it and make sure that I keep it for a long time. And see, this is where Casetify comes in. These cases, they don't even feel like a case. They just feel like your phone went to the gym and beefed up and got tougher and stronger. Casetify's impact cases are lined with their Chi-Tech 2.0 drop protection system, which provides up to 6.6 feet of drop protection. Oh, you don't believe me? Well, I'll just have to put my phone where my mouth is then. All right, so as y'all can see, I'm gonna hold my phone right up here. I'm about 5.5 feet tall. Not quite 6 feet, but I'm never gonna be holding my phone up there. And I'm gonna point this down to the ground, just so you can see exactly. It's still up here. 3, 2, 1. Oh, plop, plop. But seriously, y'all just watch me drop my phone twice. Look at that. Pure, perfect fingerprints, but that's my fault. You can't even see damage on the case, man. It just takes those bumps. It takes all those licks for your phone. It even keeps those cameras safe with that liner right there. It's just incredible. Casetify is also looking out for the planet. Their new Impact and Ultra Impact cases are made with 65% recycled materials, and their packaging is made of 100% recycled paper. It's great for the planet, and it takes away a lot of that guilt that comes when you order a cool new item online. Plus, through their Recasetify program, you can donate your old cases, any cases, not even just Casetify ones, back to the company so that they can use them to make new phone cases and give your old ones a second chance to protect somebody's phone rather than ending up in a landfill. And on top of all that, they come with the widest array of selections and styles that I've ever seen. I'm not kidding you all. I spent 2 hours on this website, 2 whole hours, just going through all the selections to pick mine. I had to bookmark some because I couldn't even get all the ones I wanted right away, so I've got some still saved in my list. But here, I'll take you on a little tour of the ones that they brought me. This is my first one. This is Brockozilla, as you can see there. He's my reminder to watch more Japanese monster movies and eat my vegetables. I've got this one right here. This is my excellent palm tree case. I love the vaporwave vibes. I got it in the pink. It just puts my nerves right at ease. So I'm a huge Las Vegas Raiders fan, as I've probably mentioned, or you've probably heard on the channel. And I got this one. I love these plane ticket designs. These are so cool. And I actually was able to customize this one with my little King James Raider Nation for life. Raider Nation for life. I'm so excited. Shout out to the lovely Fundie Fridays fan base. Y'all gave me a name, and I'm not gonna disappoint. So Peepaw is here. I know you gotta make fun of me for my technology struggles. I know I seem a little older than I am, but I love it. I love you all, and I wanted to make sure it was celebrated in phone case glory. And if all that wasn't enough, all of Casetify's cases come equipped with their Defensify antimicrobial coating that kills 99% of bacteria that come in contact with your phone. I don't know about you all, but I really like having that extra coating on an object that I literally spend 4 to 5 hours a day dragging my grubby little fingers all over. Once again, I'm not kidding. I love all of these cases. I've been cycling in and out of them through the whole week. It feels like I put my phone in some crazy space age anime battle armor or something. I just feel like my phone is safe, it's well protected, I know it's going to survive, and it's going to last and keep doing what I need it to do. So thank you so much to Casetify. Once again, you all can go to casetify.com/FundieFridays right now to get 15% off of your next order of the best phone case you will ever own. So once again, thank you so much, Casetify, and now back to the video. Alright, so with all that taken care of, it's time for us to step through the gates of hell together and dig into the sordid life and times of Congressman Matt Gaetz from Florida's 1st Congressional District. Many of you are likely already familiar with Matt, seen here trying and failing miserably to do that sexy lip bite thing. At 39 years old as of the time of recording, Matt is still relatively young, at least by the standards of the country kitchen buffet crowd that currently makes up the ranks of our U.S. Congress. And while he's still a relative newcomer to Congress, Matt has quickly made a name for himself as one of the loudest, weirdest, and most controversial lawmakers fucking about on Capitol Hill today. Honestly, I think he might be one of the weirdest ever. As we're about to find out, he would fit in super well at those creepy Hellfire Club orgies that Ben Franklin used to throw back in the day. But we're getting ahead of ourselves by a lot. We've got a lot of weirdness to cover, and just like with Lauren Boebert, things start out weird for Matt right from the get-go. Here we can see a picture of Matt's childhood home. If it's ringing any bells for you right now, there's probably a good reason for that.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Gaetz grew up in the house used to film the movie The Truman Show.
And in the mid-90s, one day, some producer just shows up in a golf cart and tells my mother that they want to make a movie in this house starring Jim Carrey.
Now, I gotta say, a lot of people online say that finding out Matt Gaetz grew up in the Truman Show house explains a lot about him. I don't really get that. He's nothing like the titular Truman Burbank, save for maybe the shared hairdo, and personally, I think Truman pulls it off way better anyway. Truman was friendly, soft-spoken, and good-hearted, none of which are adjectives I plan we'll be using to describe Matt Gaetz here today. Plus, Truman was a real person in a fake world, and Matt is a fake person in the real world. Also, a lot of people compare Matt to Butthead, but I really think that's just because of the teeth and the shared pubescent fascination with hot chicks. Butthead may have created a lot of chaos like Matt does, but he was really just a teenager who needed more supervision, and I don't want to sully his name by associating him with Matt Gaetz. Now, as you will come to see, this is far and away the best character to describe Matt Gaetz from a fictional perspective.
I mean, I've already flunked out, but it's cool. I'm gonna work at my dad's dealership. My dad owns this dealership.
I know.
Matt was brought home to his Truman Show house by Mother Victoria Quartermost Gaetz and Father Don Gaetz, a longtime Republican power couple in the state of Florida. Victoria, or Vicky, is an interesting figure in her own right. She's considered something of a beloved godmother among the Florida GOP establishment, and she's most prominently known for her major role in ending the practice of greyhound dog racing in the state of Florida. She also represents an admittedly intense story of true motherly sacrifice. From the Washington Post, his mother, Vicky Gaetz, suffered complications while pregnant with her second child. She's in a wheelchair to this day, and was advised to terminate the pregnancy. She didn't. Matt's younger sister Erin is now 32 years old, and the reason he believes abortion should be illegal. Matt has expressed that his mother made this decision based on her faith, and that it laid the foundation for his own anti-abortion views.
Seeing what it meant for my mom to have enough confidence in her own faith to put God in charge, and that in our family, God would be in charge, and that we would do all we could to do God's will and to be servants of the Lord, but we were not going to substitute our judgment for God's. And so it certainly has increased my commitment to fight for the unborn.
But beyond all of this, Vicky seems to maintain a relatively modest public profile, at least by the standards of her husband and son that we're about to talk about. She's the perfect kind of Nancy Reagan clone that the GOP loves right now, complete with a pro-life friendly backstory built right in. Likewise, Matt's sister Erin maintains a relatively modest public profile as well. Beyond a brief stint as a campaign official for Jeb Bush in 2016, Erin seems to have avoided the world of politics almost entirely and focused most of her energy running her successful social media advertising business. I can't imagine why she wouldn't want to return to politics after working on such an inspiring and successful presidential campaign. Going a little bit back in the past now, Jerry Gaetz, grandfather to Matt and father to Don, was a prominent figure in North Dakota Republican politics in the 1950s and 60s. Jerry would serve as a mayor and a state legislator before throwing his hat into the ring for a lieutenant governor run in 1964. This would have a profound impact on his son Don, as it would spark an interest in politics that would follow him through the rest of his life. Tragically, this story does have quite a sad twist ending. It's a school day in Rugby, North Dakota, but 16-year-old Don Gaetz is playing hooky to watch television coverage of his father, a candidate for lieutenant governor at the 1964 Republican convention. Don watches helplessly from his living room as his father, former town mayor, senator, working 3 jobs to make ends meet, has a fatal heart attack and collapses on the convention floor. The news cameras close in around his dying father. It was the first searing political experience of my life, says Gaetz. Truthfully, I cannot imagine what Don and his family went through dealing with something like that, and I don't want to make any jokes about it. I will admit it's a little strange to refer to the death of one's father as a searing political experience, but I'll never know what it's like to lose a family member live on TV at a Republican convention, so what the hell do I know? Don initially worked in hospital administration and lobbying throughout the 1970s and 80s, and was instrumental in getting hospice and end-of-life care added to the list of Medicare billable services. 1 year later, in 1983, he would go on to become a founding partner of the Vitus Healthcare Corporation, one of the largest hospice providers in the country. Yeah, I'm sure Don was motivated to start a hospice service because he wanted to help the terminally ill, and not because he'd made sure that he could collect millions of dollars in Medicare payments off of it the year prior. Don would go on to sell Vitus in 2004 and collect a hefty profit from the sale. In 2013, Vitus would be handed down a DOJ record $75 million fine for Medicare fraud. And while Don wasn't with the company at the time the fine was handed down, some of his time was covered in the evidence provided for the ruling. But either way, Don's net worth today seems to hover around $30 million, and we can all assume that Matty Boy grew up absolutely loaded. And see, not only would he benefit from access to his father's fortune, but Don would also lay the groundwork for Matt's political career as well. Don would first win seats as a school board member and superintendent for the Okaloosa School Board in his district, before making a run at the state senate in the early 2000s. Don was able to consistently clobber every opponent that he faced in any election. And this electoral dominance culminated in a term as the president of the Florida Senate from 2012 to 2014. Don would go ahead and serve one more non-president term in the Florida Senate from 2014 to 2016 before retiring, I presume to make sure that his son didn't go to Washington unsupervised after his own election victory. But see, while Don was climbing the ladder of Florida politics, Matt was at an age where he was really only climbing the ladder of the local high school debate team.
I was never the person picking on the nerds. I am the nerd. I was the captain of the high school debate team. You don't find a lot of bullies on the debate team. I've got over 20 hours of high school debate camp experience.
Oh, just as an aside, his podcast sucks, and there is so much of it, so many episodes. Seriously, he has only started recording this damn thing in May. And look at all of this. When do you find time to vote on bills and stuff, Matt? Also, I'm pretty sure that nobody listens to this podcast. He actually called it Hot Takes with Matt Matt Gaetz when it first started out, and he changed the name to Firebrand at some point in the middle, but I'm pretty sure I'm the first person to notice because there is absolutely no one talking about that change online. And that's not even to mention that all of the takes I heard from Matt were as cold as the middle of a Hot Pocket cooked in a crappy microwave. But anyway, while Matt likes to boast that he was merely the nerdy president of the high school debate team, in fact, he was a much more controversial student than he would like you to be aware of. Business Insider reporter Robin Brevender was able to get a full 21 of Matt's former high school classmates on the record just for the purposes of talking shit about him. I cannot recommend this article enough. It is just mwah. Once you're done here, I highly encourage you to go read the full text for yourself because I'm not going to be able to do it justice. She seriously hit Matt clean from the top rope with this one. But I am going to summarize it here. While Matt had some friends and generally was the nerdy debate whiz that he likes to portray himself as, he was also the exact kind of intolerable jerk that you might expect from someone of his particular wealth and status. According to the teammate, the girl, who had gotten a coveted slot at a debate camp at Dartmouth College, got into a fight with Gaetz. He was like, "You don't speak to me like that or I'm gonna call my dad and have him call some people at Dartmouth so your admission gets withdrawn," the teammate told Insider. The person wasn't sure whether Gaetz tried to act on this threat, but recalled the girl being worried about it at the time. Gaetz often talked about wealth and social status too, according to his former classmates. Gaetz once bragged that in high school he had a friend whose family was so wealthy that the friend used the seatbelt from his dad's old private jet as a belt for his pants, the debate team said. He, with his dad being who he was, thought he was better than everyone else and we were just ants is how it felt. Reports indicate that Matt's sparkling personality was evident as early as middle school. When he was an 8th grader at C.W. Ruckle Middle School, he sparred with a teacher, Catherine Burke, over the definition of archipelago, said Jessica Miranda, Gaetz's middle and high school classmate. To prove his point, Gaetz went home and made photocopies of what he thought the definition of archipelago was, said Miranda, who was also Burton's daughter. Gaetz taped the photocopies all over Burton's classroom door. An archipelago, according to Merriam-Webster, is an expanse of water with many scattered islands or a group of islands. And that's the last geography lesson you're going to get here. Barbie, I certainly ain't. And perhaps most upsettingly, Matt's former classmates report a long and consistent history of sex pest-like behavior. Several students highlighted his particular interest in showing off nude photographs of women he claimed to sleep with from his phone to anyone who was interested to see them, and many people who were not interested to see them. Reports of these actions came from his time in high school all the way up to a wedding he attended in 2009. At a wedding, dude? In front of Nana? So now we've laid the groundwork for Matt, a sex-obsessed misogynist who simultaneously thinks he's both better than everyone while also maintaining a glass ego and paper self-esteem. But because the world is an awful and unfair place sometimes, now we get to discuss how Matt followed his dreams and made it all the way to Congress. Lucky for Matt, likability and decency aren't generally prerequisites for getting your high school diploma, and he was able to graduate from Niceville High School in 1999. Although reports do indicate that for most of his senior year he transferred to a fancy private school, citing that he felt no one at Niceville could be an appropriate debate partner for him. But he transferred back to Niceville just 2 months before graduation. I like to assume it's kind of like all the Disney movies I watched as a kid and he came back to help him with the big debate tournament, and not just because he couldn't cut it at the fancy private school. Matt would go directly from here to college at Florida State University, earning his degree in interdisciplinary sciences, which for those who don't know is basically just a degree in going to grad school, says the guy who got a bachelor's in psychology. And following his graduation from Florida State, Matt would move on to the College of William and Mary for law school. And once again, we have Robin Brevender to thank for hitting Matt from the top rope by interviewing yet another set of his former classmates, this time from law school. Because of Robin's diligent research, we now have an inside look at Matty Boy the Fratty Boy and how he underwent precisely no personal growth or development between high school and law school. Matt Gaetz was throwing a Super Bowl party. His invitation included specific requests: chips, $1 bills, and strippers. I may ask you to bring some incidentals, napkins, cups, chips, strippers, etc., Gaetz wrote in an email obtained by Insider. P.S. After entering all of your email addresses, it is painfully obvious that I don't know enough girls. So bring some. He often hosted friends there to play cards or drink from a keg in the basement, sources told Insider. In his second year of law school, Gaetz offered up 2 kegs and a party at his house for a fundraising auction to benefit students doing unpaid public interest work during the summer, reported The Advocate. the law school's newspaper. And in terms of his pattern of sex pestery, his college classmates seemed to think that he would have gotten better at hiding his indiscretions, but not necessarily that his morals or ethics would have improved. The recent sex trafficking allegations stunned one former classmate, who was surprised that Gaetz would do anything that could compromise his political career. Am I surprised he's partying with people and doing that kind of stuff? No, the person said, but they found the allegations that Gaetz had sex with a minor shocking because he has a very high sense of self-preservation. The person added, "I'm surprised he wouldn't check their references." Seriously, Robin Brevender should get like the Nobel Prize for pettiness for this article. It is absolutely incredible, and I stan her until the end of time for it. But once again, being a good person isn't a requirement for graduating law school, and Matt was able to obtain his Juris Doctor in 2007, which he followed up by passing the bar in 2008. He would celebrate this achievement in 2008 by having a couple of beers at a Destin, Florida bar referred to as the Swamp. See, now it all makes sense. He always wants to drain the swamp. They must have had a flooded bathroom or something, is all. But as he drove home following those beers, he was pulled over for speeding, indicated signs of intoxication, refused all field sobriety measures, and was subsequently arrested. However, like any good, rich, white daddy's boy from a legacy family, he bonded out quickly and faced almost no actual consequences. From the Tampa Bay Times, he didn't have his license suspended for a year when he refused the breath test, as Florida law dictates, and he didn't have that refusal used against him in a criminal proceeding. Charges against Gaetz were dismissed after events that included, among other things, the forced resignation of his arresting officer. We might have to reread that because somebody saw the FedEx guy. Although cathartically this behavior would come back to bite him later in a political sense, let's all take a moment to watch the awesome Representative Hank Johnson of Georgia verbally dropkick Matt for his hypocrisy against Hunter Biden regarding his own substance abuse concerns.
But it's a little hard to believe that Burisma hired Hunter Biden to resolve their international disputes when he could not resolve his own dispute with Hertz Rental Car over leaving cocaine in a crack pipe in the car.
The pot calling the kettle black is not something that we should do. I don't know what members, if any, have had any problems with substance abuse, been busted in DUI. I don't know. But if I did, I wouldn't raise it against anyone on this committee.
Yet even despite all of this debauchery, Matt was able to secure a working position as an attorney in his local area after he passed the bar. But as one can see here from his relatively blank legal profile, a quiet career in the practice of law was never really part of Matt's plans. In 2010, former Florida House Speaker and 4th District Representative Ray Sansom would resign his position due to his conviction on corruption charges, and Matt would go ahead and throw his hat into the ring for the special primary that would take place to fill his seat. Matt would clobber the entire fatal 5-way worth of Republican primary challengers and would go on to clobber his general election opponent even harder, flexing his connections, fundraising ability, and all those years at debate camp along the way. Matt was so happy to embrace his familial connections and financial support that he earned the nickname Baby Gaetz from his local political figures to complement his father Don's Papa Gaetz moniker. While this nickname was considered a term of endearment among the local GOP, Democrats in the area used the term Baby Gaetz a little differently, as we'll see in this clip, which I haven't tampered with or edited in any way whatsoever.
Baby Gaetz has got to go! Hey, hey! Oh, oh. Baby Gaetz has got to go! Hey, hey! $1.2 million!
Matt would go on to the 2010 general election to run unopposed, which he would also do in 2012 and 2014. During his time in his seat as a Florida representative, Matt worked hard to spearhead such important matters as allowing gasoline in Florida to be less eco-friendly by removing ethanol blend requirements, limiting the appeals of death row inmates and speeding up the process of execution, supporting George Zimmerman following his racially motivated murder of teenager Trayvon Martin, working to grant automatic expungement for defendants acquitted with stand your ground laws, which have demonstrated significant racial bias, but perhaps most notably, though, would be Matt's odd and unique stance on Florida's first ever anti-revenge porn bill.
The Orlando Sun-Sentinel is reporting that as a member of the Florida legislature, Gaetz was the chief opponent of legislation that would outlaw so-called revenge porn, when someone shares intimate photos or videos of former lovers without their consent. The Republican sponsor of that legislation told the Sun Sentinel Matt was absolutely against it. He thought that any picture was his to use as he wanted to, as an expression of his rights.
Have you ever learned something that just made perfect sense the first time you ever heard it? That's how I felt finding out that Matt Gaetz doesn't like anti-revenge porn laws. Also, Nana remembers what you did at the wedding, Matt. In 2016, longtime GOP stalwart Jeff Miller of Northern Florida's 1st District resigned from his 16 years serving in the seat. As one might expect from someone with a resume specifically designed to make Republicans weak in the knees, Matt was eager to throw his hat into the ring for this nearly uncontestable red district. And history would repeat itself in an oddly striking way here. Matt would go on to face yet another fatal five-way in the primary that he would win handily, and then go on to the general election where he would win even more handily against his Democratic opponent. Matt would produce similar results in both the 2018 election cycle and the 2020 election cycle as well, which at the time of this recording has given the Republican Party control of Florida's 1st District for an unbroken streak of 27 years, with no signs of electoral change on the horizon. And in regards to 2022, don't let optimistic headlines like this one fool you. Matt still has all of the clout he ever had with the MAGA crowd, and his district is one of the single most Republican safe in the entire country. The only way he isn't their representative in 2022, as far as I can see it, is if he's arrested, comatose, or it's otherwise legitimately impossible for him to take the seat. I think that if he runs, he's going to win. And this all takes us to the present day, where we can now see how Matt went from annoying just Floridians to annoying the rest of us. So let's go ahead and take a look at the beliefs he claims to espouse while serving as a member of our 117th American Congress. We're going to start with religion first. Jen says that if I don't talk about religion at least once an episode, I don't get sprinkles on my Sunday, and I do love my sprinkles. Matt reports that he is a practicing Southern Baptist and actively attends the First Baptist Church of Fort Walton, Florida. However, beyond Matt's statements about his mother's sacrifice in regards to his sister, Matt's stance on Christianity just seems aggressively practiced. It's like he wants to make sure to just check the box that he needs to check as a Christian on his Republican scorecard. He doesn't have that same true believer aura that I felt from Lauren Boebert. I mean, in this clip, I swear, he sounds more like a worn-out manager trying to get you excited about selling stock options or insurance plans than he does a devout follower of Christ slain in the Spirit.
Just as in our faith, we ask it, to be that great light. We want to show people that they want to get in on all the goodness that comes with being a Christian. All the happiness, all the joy, all the fulfillment you get from serving the Lord. Try to be that same light in the service of our values and in our beliefs and in the greatness of this country, because it's a phenomenal thing to be a part of.
And I could be wrong about this, but all I can hear with this next clip is kid who studied really hard for the test and gets excited when he knows the answer to question 1.
All right, this is kind of a different question, but the question is, what is the most influential book you've ever read?
The Bible. It's so easy.
Although maybe he should have not gotten so confident and remembered that he passed out on his textbook at 9 p.m. last night while studying. We'll watch here as he stumbles through an attempt to explain the Immaculate Conception to Chris Cuomo, while also insulting his Christian constituents by making fun of the Virgin Mary.
What do you mean by the Immaculate Conception?
That was the substance of... Look, I was making a point that this is an absurd coincidence.
By what? Like, what do you think happened with the Immaculate Conception?
The Immaculate Conception, it's obviously a religious doctrine that deals with the Christian faith.
I know, but I'm saying, like, where is the analogy? That's what I don't understand. What do you think happened with the Immaculate Conception?
Look, did you really bring me on to discuss my religious views, Chris?
No, I'm saying you made the analogy, and
Jesus was born.
I don't understand. The Immaculate Conception is not how Jesus was born.
We also have evidence to show that Matt himself may be fine with the LGBTQIA+ community, but also that he is more than happy to sell them out as soon as it becomes convenient. One more time today, Robin Bravender's gonna come from the top rope for us to hit Matt with this blistering quotation from former classmate and friend Aaron Scott. Scott said that Gaetz, who was an attorney at a Florida law firm, told her that he had personally cast his vote against a Florida ballot measure to adopt a constitutional amendment to define marriage as the union of one man and one woman. He told me that he would never vote to take away gay marriage or to make it illegal. Scott, who is gay, recalled of their 2009 conversation. He brought it up on his own to let me know, "I support you." She became furious when Gaetz ran for the Florida House of Representatives in 2010 and asserted marriage ought to be between one man and one woman. "I was so disgusted by it," she told The Insider this month. "I knew him to not believe that." But overall, just having spent the last 2 weeks of my life with my head crammed firmly up Matt's personal beliefs and general business, I would just say that religion doesn't seem to have that big a part of Matt's life, and it certainly doesn't matter to him more than politics. So with that in mind, what are his political beliefs then? Okay, so before I start talking about Matt Gaetz's political beliefs, I want to do a quick overview of what I've looked into to make sure I get the complete picture. I've read dozens of articles that you'll find in our info box. I watched the uncomfortably friendly 2020 Swamp documentary on HBO. I listened to several episodes of Matt's god-awful podcast, and I even picked up his book, Firebrand, named just like the podcast. I'll be honest with you all. I made it about halfway through before I physically could not take it anymore. But if I learned anything from the Swamp, it's that Thomas Massey only read 20% of the Mueller report before he threw it out, so I don't feel that guilty. But I tell you everything I've researched just to highlight that I can say with confidence that Matt Gaetz is a Republican, and he holds all of the standard Republican beliefs you would expect. Really, that's about it. I know I seem to say that a lot in these episodes, but modern Republicans just are not willing to step outside boldly against the party line, or at least not against the Trump line. He even made sure to let us know that we were getting the exact same Matt that the Florida House got in 2010. He did this by voting against the widely popular Combating Human Trafficking in Commercial Vehicles Act in 2017. Just for reference, when I say this bill was overwhelmingly popular, I mean that this was the vote chart for that bill. Matt was literally the only person in the House to actively vote against it, and to hear him tell it he only did so because of concerns for government overreach. But ever since this defiant opening salvo of his, Matt's mostly just taken the Republican Party line on every issue he's confronted with. Tax cuts, deregulation, cops and guns, loves them. Athletes who choose to kneel at sporting events, Antifa, hates them. Climate change? It's not humans, and we need to get rid of the EPA for some reason. Obamacare? Well, he thinks it caused the opioid epidemic. And military spending? Well, Matt obviously thinks that U.S. lethality needs to reach to every corner of the globe. No, for real, he just straight up said that.
The U.S. is not the world's policeman. We are not the world's piggy bank. We have to have the capability to fight in any conflict and prevail with overwhelming success. We have to have the ability to ensure that U.S. lethality can reach every corner of the globe.
And see, this list of positions goes on exactly as you would likely expect it to. He pays lip service to things like legal marijuana, term limits, a reinstitution of Congress's war powers, limiting the military-industrial complex, but that's all it is just lip service. It feels just like a sprinkle of millennial-friendly social libertarianism to appeal to the guys down at Delta Iota Kappa. I also suspect this is why he's oddly quiet about his support for law enforcement, since we all know the frat crowd is really only interested in other people being told no. Matt supports cops, but you have to dig pretty far down in his website to find photos like this one. But honestly, I was really just hoping for Matt to defy my preconceived notions a little bit more. I wanted to be wrong, and truthfully, I was pretty well right about him before I even started my research. I could sit here and list each individual shitty thing that Matt Gaetz has done while he's a representative, but then the video would be 6 hours long and we would all be needlessly annoyed and upset. Besides, after all my research, I think Matt has really made his name on two key issues. The first of these issues is immigration. And while I certainly didn't have any trouble finding gross, ignorant statements from Matt on a variety of topics, his way of talking about immigrants and refugees and folks who live in developing nations reeks of the kind of disdain that someone from extreme privilege tends to have around someone with extreme disadvantage. Let's watch here as Matt uses racism to stun MSNBC anchor Chris Hayes into a stammering stupor. And need I remind you, Chris literally interviews people for a living, so it has to be a special kind of terrible to throw him this far off his game.
I think it's very dangerous to overgeneralize the broader contributions of people solely based on national origin.
Right, or to generalize by referring to a country or an entire continent in the terms the president did, which is also an overgeneralization.
I would not pick those terms, but I would say that the conditions in Haiti are deplorable. They are disgusting. I mean, it's everywhere you look in Haiti, it's sheet metal and garbage when I was there.
Yep. I agree, Chris. That was shockingly racist. The other issue, though, that has really pushed Matt to the forefront of the American political conversation has been COVID-19. Matt has been a loud, aggressive, disinformative machine ever since the earliest days of the pandemic. Right at the beginning, in March of 2020, as infection rates were starting to climb and things were getting really scary, Matt decided it was a good idea to do some light trolling by wearing this getup to the House floor. Matt also would go far out of his way to try and waste public resources on various conspiracy theories related to the virus. Here he is in June 2021, actively wasting the time of the FBI director, along with all of the taxpayer money it took to set this up, chasing down crackpot theories that are important to him.
Director Wray, we are unable to hold the Chinese Communist Party accountable if we throw our hands in the air and say, well, there's differences of opinion. We have to assess whether those differences are similarly rooted in fact. That's why I need the facts from you. Will you provide to this committee any scientific analysis that the FBI has done regarding Dr. Yan's claims, regarding the messages she provided to you, regarding Beijing's knowledge of the origins of this virus, their military's involvement, and even efforts to try to present to the world a fake genome sequence at the beginning of these developments?
And for reference here, the Dr. Li Ming Yan that Matt is referring to there published her research on Zenodo, a non-peer-reviewed open access platform for academic literature, and her work was immediately ripped apart by a great number of more established virologists working much closer with the COVID virus. And in that same June 2021 month, Matt would introduce legislation to prevent government funding of electronic vaccine passport and pass programs, which could have been a valuable tool for all of us in stopping this whole thing. But none of these issues will ever matter more to Matt than his most prized political asset and concern, namely his dear, dear friendship with Donald Trump. Now, Matt's going to try and pitch this to you like it was a tactical decision he made to try and advance his own policy ideas and his district, while assisting the president only with things that they mutually cared about. But I'm sorry, I don't buy it.
I've been very disappointed at the capability of the legislative process in Congress to do good for people. And so I decided that if you really want to make things happen in Washington, presidential leadership sure matters a lot. And so I figured that if I would fight hard for the elements of the Trump agenda that I agreed with, if the president could view me as a reliable supporter and consigliere and advisor, and certainly doesn't mean I agree with the president on every single thing, but I do my best to try to give him good advice, then maybe that would create a good dividend for my district and my constituents and my values.
Now wait a minute, what the hell? What is a consigliere? Hold on a second. Damn, Matt, what is it? Stoic advisor or mafioso right hand?
Florida Republican Representative Matt Gaetz held a rally in Cheyenne, Wyoming today against Liz Cheney.
I'll confess to you, this is my first time in Wyoming. I've been here for about an hour, and I feel like I already know the place a lot better than your misguided representative, Liz Cheney.
Gaetz is hoping to create backlash against the number 3 House Republican after she voted to impeach former President Donald Trump for inciting the riot at the U.S. Capitol.
So just to be clear, Matt dressed up in his fanciest suit and drove hundreds of miles to execute a Washington-style hit on the character of someone who dared cross his presidential boss. Yeah, I'm definitely getting less of a wizened advisor feel and more of this instead.
Who do you want me to whack? Just pick, I'll whack him. Well, how about that guy over there with the socks? Oh, I'm still talking to you. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna look away.
And see, even beyond all this Godfather stuff, if you dig a little bit deeper, it starts to feel even less like a cool hand enforcer relationship, and honestly more like a delusional fanboy situation. From Firebrand, the book. Like Lincoln, Trump also cultivates a team of rivals, but tonight the band of brothers, and one sister, could be permitted a bit of R&R. President Trump turned to the small group of guests that included Reps Mark Meadows, Jim Jordan, Andy Biggs, Debbie Lesko, Mike Johnson, and their spouses. All had joined the White House Christmas party. My date was there too. Way out of my league, as the president delighted in telling me in front of her. Lincoln had the great General Grant, and I have Matt Gaetz. She was impressed, though perhaps not that much. There wouldn't be a second date. Yes, Matt, women nowadays do tend to avoid guys like this who refer to themselves as the Grant to their best friend's Lincoln. So at the end of all this, the Florida First gets their local trust fund miscreant to represent them in the hallowed halls of Congress, and the rest of us get a loud, stubborn Trumper to throw onto the pile that's already there. You're probably asking me, James, it can't possibly get any worse, can it, right? Oh, my sweet summer child, it sure can get worse. See, amidst all of the political fuckery we've been talking about, Matt is also a world champion scandal generator. He seems to put in a ton of extracurricular hours on various personal endeavors that range from the merely odd to the legitimately horrifying. I mean, don't get me wrong, he has boring political scandals too. He's pipelined taxpayer money to his donors' properties. He's used taxpayer money to hire his own speechwriters, which is illegal. Shoot, he even got to flex a little bit of that mafioso skill by doing a little bit of good old-fashioned witness tampering. But these are the kinds of improprieties that politicians can get away with now for the most part. What separates Matt from the rest of the pack in Congress is the overwhelming salaciousness that seems to follow him, like rain follows Truman Burbank. For starters, do you remember that little habit Matt has of showing nude photographs of women he's supposedly slept with to various people without the consent of anyone other than himself? Yeah, well, you'd think he'd stop something like that before getting to Congress, right? I mean, if he were a decent person, he wouldn't have done it at all, but, at least by the time you get to Congress, you'd think that would stop, right? Well, if you did think that, you're about to be real disappointed.
Our Hill team tonight is reporting that the Congressman Gaetz, has garnered a reputation among lawmakers for showing off nude pictures of women, nude video of women that he claims to have slept with. And oftentimes these lawmakers are seeing these photos, they say, on the floor of the U.S. House. One source telling CNN, quote, it was a point of pride for him.
Really, Matt? On the House floor? That is a sacred space of American patriotism. We passed the Civil Rights Act there, damn it. And you know who was there for the Civil Rights Act? Nana. And you've ruined her day for a third time in just one episode. Shame on you. Don't worry though, it gets even weirder. Following a very strange 2020 interaction between Matt and Representative Cedric Thompson of Louisiana regarding whether non-white people can have non-white children, Matt decided to reveal to the world that he had had an adopted son for going on 7 years. According to Matt, and corroborated by his sister Erin, he adopted Nestor Galban when Nestor was 12 and Matt himself was 30, which is already suspect to anyone who understands how difficult it is for any single man to adopt any child. But even more oddly than that, records show that prior to this announcement, Matt had just reported himself having no children at all and had been seen referring to Nestor as both a family friend and even just a local student. And that's not even to account for creepy shit like this from Tucker Carlson. Sorry. Whenever I say his name, I get the dry heaves.
Nestor is the light of my life. I couldn't imagine him loving him any more if he was my own flesh and blood. I've raised him for the last 6 years.
Look, I'm supportive of non-traditional and blended families, but I don't trust Matt Gaetz to raise a vulnerable teenage immigrant. I don't trust Matt Gaetz to raise a hamster in excellent health. But don't you worry, Matt went ahead and set up the nuclear family that a young man like Nestor would need to be successful and well-rounded. Matt did this by marrying his girlfriend, Ginger Lucky, in August of 2021. Notable about Ginger is that she is 26 years old, so 13 years Matt's junior, and she only met Matt in March of 2020, and he only proposed in December of 2020 before the August 2021 wedding. I mean, I get it, it's certainly not illegal, and honestly, by the standards of last week's Mormon-centric episode, their timetable for marriage was downright reasonable. But given everything surrounding Matt, and the fact that Ginger's brother is Oculus creator, noted eccentric, and large money Republican donor Palmer Luckey, this whole thing just adds a lot of smoke to what already seems like a roaring blaze of impropriety. But all of this pales in comparison to Matt's most disturbing scandal, his recent allegations of sex trafficking. Now, I want to highlight that this is a massive, disturbing, and complicated scandal that is still ongoing and developing as we speak. I'm not even going to try to do a deep dive into this today. This will only be a quick summary of the major players and events. Since 2018, it seems that federal investigators have become aware of a relationship between Matt and Seminole County, Florida tax collector Joel Greenberg. In April of 2018, Matt was observed following Joel to a government office where it would later be discovered that Joel was manufacturing fake IDs for the purposes of sex trafficking minors across state lines. Evidence from Matt's Venmo and Cash App records, along with the testimonies of some associates, including an ex-girlfriend of his, and Greenberg himself following his June 2020 arrest, seem to indicate that Matt paid a 17-year-old girl for sex and then later facilitated her further trafficking. This case is still ongoing, and new evidence is coming out seemingly every day. As it stands right now, there is potential evidence to tie Matt Gaetz to around 15 prostitution and trafficking cases, along with further potential charges such as drug use and violations of the Mann Act for transporting minors across state lines for sexual activity and prostitution. Now, of course, Matt maintains that this is all just a vast conspiracy against him and his family, but he has bungled the handling of this every step of the way. For example, let's all watch Matt make Tucker Carlson very uncomfortable by personally indicting him in Matt's own scandals, acknowledging that he pays for the flights and hotels of his dates in the weirdest context possible, and admitting to potential charges that the public hadn't even been made aware of yet. Oh, and that dry heave wasn't for Tucker. This shit's just gross.
I can say that actually you and I went to dinner about 2 years ago. Your wife was there, and I brought a friend of mine. You'll remember her. And she was actually threatened by the FBI, told that if she wouldn't cop to the fact that somehow I was involved in some pay-for-play scheme, that she could face trouble. Providing for flights and hotel rooms for people that you're dating who are of legal age is not a crime.
I don't remember the woman you're speaking of or the context at all, honestly.
I really saw this as a deeply troubling challenge for my family on March 16th when people were, talking about a minor and that there were pictures of me with child prostitutes. That's obviously false. There will be no such pictures because no such thing happened.
Out of all the many piles of shit that Matt has stepped into throughout his political career, it does seem like this is the one with the biggest likelihood to actually end his political career. Some in his own party have been calling for his resignation, and as mentioned before, evidence continues to mount up in this case against him. But Matt chugs along, and acts at least like, for all intents and purposes, he plans to be there in the 118th Congress. Even beyond all of the undying political allegiances he has in the state of Florida through his family name, Matt has also cultivated a strong personal relationship with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who has recently emerged as a primary frontrunner for the presidential nomination of the GOP in 2024. And in perhaps the most painful of Fundie Fridays-themed ironies, Matt has also spent the last year cultivating a strong partnership with, of all people, Marjorie Taylor Greene. This partnership began in May of 2021 as the two would work to co-organize a series of pro-Trump America First rallies in various supportive red districts throughout the country. Since then, MTG has decided that Disney princesses are the greatest threat to American society.
The Democrats are the party of pedophiles. The Democrats are the party of princess predators from Disney, and their identity is the most disgusting, evil, horrible things happening in our country.
Matt, on the other hand, has assigned this greatest American threat label to a different group of people, namely American diabetics struggling with insulin prices, who he says need to stop draining our system and simply lose weight. Personally, Matt, I'd rather pay for the insulin of every single person in this country before I'd pay for your speechwriter. Oh, and Matt and Marjorie were able to also comprise 2/3 of the entire vote against Joe Biden's economic sanctions against Russia, stemming from their invasion of Ukraine, further solidifying the concerning relationship between the Republican Party and the Russian government. So with all of that, here are my final thoughts. I've only personally been making Fundie Fridays episodes for about 4 months now, and even in just that short time, my last couple of subjects have presented me with a layer of nuance and complexity that forced me to look at them as people beyond even their regressive beliefs and selfish ways. I can understand how folks like Lauren Boebert or Paula White would come to have the beliefs they do after struggling and sacrificing to make it the ways that they did. Even as I disagree with their beliefs and their conclusions, I can see how they got there, and I can understand how it happened. I can empathize with them. And I can also hope that maybe someday they'll reflect back on what they've been through and use it to build up their own character and become better, more caring humans. And I want you all to know that absolutely none of that nuance applies to Matt Gaetz. Zero, zilch, nada. He is simply selfishness and regression incarnate. Matt Gaetz was born on third and thought he hit a triple. Or rather, he was born in the Truman Show house and thought it made him a star. And tragically, he's somewhat correct in that thinking. Matt Gaetz has had access to every possible head start in life that I can think of. Every advantage has been granted to him. He's wealthy, he's white, he's straight, he's cisgendered, he's an American, he has family connections, and he has charisma. There is truly not a disadvantage in sight when it comes to him. Matt is like a golem from a D&D game, except instead of being composed of stone or steel, he's built out of privilege. These privileges have protected him since birth, shielded him from the kinds of difficulties that force others into personal growth and reflection. And because of all that, he is now nothing without those privileges. I mean, how can I expect personal growth and development from someone who it's never been demanded of? What incentive does Matt have to change? The world has already been built around people like him. I have studied this man from his birth to his present-day activities, and I have not found a shred of evidence to suggest that he is capable of being any more than the conniving, predatory frat boy that he presents to all of us. Even if at one time he shared some sort of bipartisan dreams of progress with Ro Khanna, he is far too sold out now to accomplish anything of the sort, and I suspect that he was far too sold out long before he ever made it to Congress. At absolute best, Matt is a once optimistic millennial who was so happy to sell out that you would be hard-pressed to find evidence that he ever cared about anyone or anything. He may flash a glimpse of a reasonable opinion or concern for his fellow man, but that's all they ever seem to be. Flashes. But I think here today we've laid the groundwork that shows that Matt Gaetz is not simply misguided. He is toxic, self-serving, and completely unconcerned with the vulnerable or the oppressed, and those are just his faults as a political figure. We have further evidence to suggest that in his private life, he is an even worse monster than he portrays in the halls of Congress. It makes me sick that this man has made it to our government. And honestly, at the end of all this, I think maybe I lost some patriotism I didn't even know I had left. It's hard to give advice about a situation as dark as this. I want to be positive, but Matt Gaetz makes that so difficult. So you know what? I'm not going to try and find middle ground with him. I'm going to tell you who the heroes of this story are. The heroes are people like Robin Brevender of Business Insider, the incredible staff at the Tampa Bay Times, and all of the journalists out there around the world keeping people like Matt Gaetz accountable for their horrid actions. I encourage you to continue reading and supporting their work. If you have some extra money, maybe subscribe to your local paper and support local journalism. And please, if you ever have to refer to Matt Gaetz for the rest of your life, I only hope that it's an insult. Have a great day. Thank you all so much for watching. I know this was a bit of a darker episode. Matt's certainly a tougher topic, but it means a lot that you stuck around to the end here. Please know how much we love y'all. I'm going to tell you what I always do. Do something kick-ass this weekend, and if that means just making yourself some food or even just putting on fresh clothes, well, that's kick-ass, isn't it? Please make sure to consensually smash that like and subscribe button. If you really like us, you can hit that little bell so you know anytime we put out new content. We have our Patreon. We have merchandise, including the brand new Bonfire Magical Tee available on our Bonfire shirt. Thank you to all the wonderful staff at Bonfire for helping us design this. We have other merch there too. Feel free to reach out to us on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. We love to hear from folks. Y'all stay safe, take care of one another, and have a nice day.
You know what I like to do? I like to pop gas station dick pills, drink 4 Loko, and fuck strippers.